The galaxy had learned to whisper their name with fear. The Krail Dominion, conquerors of 1,000 suns, destroyers of civilizations, devourers of hope. Wherever their black-armored fleets appeared, resistance crumbled like dust beneath iron boots. They were methodical, relentless, and proud of their reputation. Worlds did not merely fall to the Dominion, they were consumed, reshaped, and bound into the ever-growing chain of subjugation. Entire species spoke of them not as soldiers, but as an unstoppable force of nature, as inevitable as death. The latest target of their advance was a small, unassuming system, catalogued as Sol 3. Intelligence had marked it as backwater territory, barely worth recognition, and yet tactically useful as a staging point toward richer conquests beyond. To the Krail, it was another stepping stone. Another world to burn. Their fleet descended like a storm, tearing the veil of silence from the void. Over 100 warships emerged from the rift space lanes, their jagged hulls glittering in the dim starlight. They stretched in a line of power across the darkness, a wall of sharpened fangs. Cruisers, carriers, battleships, all primed with weapons that had reduced empires to rubble. The commander of this invasion, Overlord Vadran, stood upon the bridge of his flagship, the Maelthar. His skin, dark and scaled like onyx stone, gleamed beneath the chamber's shifting red light. A being of wars uncounted, he bore himself with the calm arrogance of one who had never known true defeat. His eyes narrowed as the system came alive on his star charts. "Prepare the assault squadrons," Vadran ordered. His voice was smooth, edged with cruelty. "We end this quickly." The officers of his species bowed their heads, none daring to question. None had reason to. The Dominion had broken armadas 10 times the size of this insignificant system's defenses. They had crushed warriors, erased kings, and enslaved gods in temples that now bore the mark of the Krail. Yet as the fleet advanced, sensors began to flicker. A single contact appeared on the edge of the void. A solitary vessel. No escorts. No fleet. Just one. Vadran frowned. "What is this?" "Unknown configuration," reported the sensor chief. His mandibles clicked uneasily as his displays tried to define the anomaly. "Metallic mass, but larger than most battleships we have encountered. Its identification protocols are silent. No transponders. No banners. Silence pressed against the bridge. One ship. One." Vadran sneered. "A relic. Or a foolhardy attempt at defiance. Destroy it." But as the command left his lips, the image of the vessel sharpened, drawn in crisp definition by the scanner's relentless sweep. The alien crew leaned closer, their expressions twisting in disbelief. The ship was unlike anything they had seen before. Its hull was sleek yet armored with lines that carried purpose, not ornament. It bore no colors, no markings of allegiance, only a pale sheen of gray-black metal that reflected the light of the distant star. Its silhouette was vast, predatory, with flared wings of reinforced plating that suggested both speed and brute endurance. It was neither crude nor ornate, it was efficient. Terrifyingly so. Vadran's gaze narrowed. "Identify it." The sensor chief hesitated. Then his voice cracked with something rarely heard aboard a Dominion flagship: fear. "The data matches no known empire. Cross-referencing archives, registering designation, human. Species, Terran. World of origin. Sol 3. The bridge froze. A laugh rose from Vadran's throat, low and mocking. "One warship? That is their defense? Do these humans believe they can halt the Dominion with this token gesture?" But the sensor chief did not share his commander's mirth. His mandibles trembled. "Overlord, the readings are inconsistent. Power emissions exceed standard battleship levels by a factor of 10. Their drive systems are stable yet radiating flux signatures beyond comprehension. And the armament arrays, there are too many. I cannot categorize them. Another officer hissed. Perhaps their technology is crude. Flawed. No, the chief whispered. This ship is not crude. It is designed for war. Entirely for war. The alien bridge grew heavy with an unease unfamiliar to conquerors. For centuries, they had known what awaited them in battle. They had studied their enemies, dismantled their ships, and adapted their strategies. But this was new. A vessel with no history, no precedent, no weakness yet visible. Still, Overlord Vadron would not allow hesitation. One ship is nothing against a fleet. Nothing. Signal the forward line to engage. Let this human warship be erased. Across the stars, engines roared to life. Dominion cruisers accelerated in formation, peeling away from the main fleet like vultures descending on prey. Their hulls glistened as weapon systems ignited, lances of plasma and volleys of missiles ready to turn the lone vessel into slag. Yet the human ship did not retreat. It did not signal. It did not even adjust its position. It simply remained, dark and watchful, as if judging the predators now moving toward it. The moment stretched like a taut wire. Then, without fanfare, the human ship moved. It was subtle at first, just a shift in angle, a slight burn of thrusters, but then came the acceleration. Not the kind of acceleration Dominion warships achieved with roaring engines and screaming drive systems, but a smooth, predatory surge, as though the ship were cutting through the fabric of space itself. It glided forward, unshaken by the sight of dozens of alien guns trained upon it. Weapons locked. Distance closed. The battle was seconds away. Overlord Vadron leaned forward, eyes gleaming with cruel delight. Now, let us see what makes this human warship special. And in the darkness of the Sol system, the galaxy prepared to learn the answer. The void trembled as Dominion ships surged forward, engines blazing with predatory hunger. Waves of cruisers, their jagged silhouettes glinting with cruel intent, swept into attack formation. Plasma cannons charged, torpedo bays opened, and missile pods aligned to unleash devastation. The Krail had brought down empires with such power before. They expected no different now. But the human warship did not falter. It did not run. It moved with the grace of a predator awaiting its moment, an ancient beast that had learned patience before violence. Target acquired, hissed a Dominion gunnery officer aboard the Vaynar, one of the forward destroyers. Distance closing. Firing solution optimal. Overlord Vadron's voice thundered across the fleet's comms. Crush it. Show these primitives what defiance means. The command released the storm. Blazing rivers of plasma shot across the darkness, leaving trails of searing light. Swarms of guided missiles hurled forward, their engines cutting bright scars across the stars. Torpedoes, armed with warheads capable of cracking asteroid colonies, arced toward the solitary human vessel. The void lit up as if a star had exploded. And yet, through the maelstrom of annihilation, the human ship moved. With impossible precision, it pivoted. Not sluggishly, as massive ships were known to do, but with an agility no warship of that size should possess. Its hull rolled, dipped, then cut across trajectories with surgical accuracy. Plasma bolts missed. Missiles collided with each other, confused by sudden decoys that flared into existence like phantom stars. Torpedoes were intercepted mid-flight by defensive bursts so sharp they seemed less like weapons and more like claws swiping away threats. The Dominion's first wave had failed. A hush fell across their comms. And then the human ship responded. No warning, no flare of charging weaponry, just silence. Then the void itself seemed to ignite. From the human ship's flanks erupted lances of light unlike anything the Dominion had catalogued. They weren't plasma, nor simple beam weapons. These strikes cut clean through the void, invisible for a heartbeat before tearing into their targets with pinpoint violence. One Dominion destroyer, the Zarn, shuddered as its armored prow evaporated into molten slag. A second beam tore through its midsection, splitting the vessel in two. The explosion blossomed like a dying sun. The fleet reeled. Another strike. Another Dominion cruiser fell, its hull collapsing inward as if gravity itself had devoured it. Ships scrambled to evade, breaking formation, confusion crackling across comm channels. On the Malthar, Overlord Vadron's claws dug into the armrest of his command throne. "What weapon is this?" "Unknown," the sensor chief croaked, panic thick in his tone. "The energy signatures, there are no precedents. They're firing arcs, they defy standard limits. It's as if the ship is bending space itself to aim." More beams cut through the Dominion line. Where once a proud vanguard surged, now debris and flame drifted, bodies tumbling silently into the void. The Krail were conquerors, but they were also intelligent. And for the first time in centuries, fear was dawning upon them. "Red-ask Squadrons Beta and Delta." Vadron barked. "Surround it. Do not let it dictate the battlefield." The orders rippled outward. Dominion warships swarmed like hornets, darting at the lone vessel from all angles. Their numbers filled the void, tightening the noose. Dozens, then scores, closing in to overwhelm by sheer mass. The human warship slowed. It turned deliberately, exposing its broadside to the enemy. A foolish maneuver by conventional doctrine, a warship should never leave itself vulnerable. But the humans did not follow Dominion logic. Panels slid open across the ship's armored flanks. From within, hundreds of smaller shapes erupted, sleek, dagger-like drones, silent and merciless. They streaked into the void in perfect synchrony, each armed with weapons scaled for precision and slaughter. The swarm struck. Dominion interceptors screamed as drones sliced through their ranks. Fighters that had once held superiority against entire planetary defenses were reduced to shrapnel in seconds. The drones moved not with programmed hesitation, but with intent, anticipating, countering, hunting. They acted like predators that had studied their prey long before this battle. Explosions bloomed. Shattered hulls scattered. The swarm returned to the human ship between volleys, reloading, reconfiguring, before darting out again like living blades of light. The Dominion fleet staggered, its carefully engineered formations reduced to chaos. Commanders barked conflicting orders, ships tripped over one another in their panic to evade invisible death. Their strength, once overwhelming, was now strangling itself. On the Malthar, Vadron rose to his feet, his arrogance flickering. "Impossible," he muttered. "No single vessel wields such power. No world of this scale could create it." But deep within, he knew the truth. This was not simply a ship. It was a warning. The Dominion fought desperately, bleeding ships into the void, but the human vessel continued its silent ballet of death. Not once did it hail them. Not once did it speak. It destroyed, and it judged. For the first time in countless campaigns, the Krail Dominion felt the weight of mortality pressing against them. Their conquest, so long unchallenged, had struck something immovable. Something ancient, deliberate, and merciless. The void echoed with burning wrecks and dying signals as the human warship advanced. Still, Vadron's fury blazed. He would not allow his fleet, his legacy, to be undone by one vessel. Not now. Not ever. "Signal the dreadnoughts," he roared, voice shaking the bridge. "Bring them forward. We will break this phantom, or we will die upon its blades." The order rang out, desperate and defiant. And in the shadow of Sol, the battle was only beginning. The Dominion dreadnoughts advanced like mountains set adrift in the void. Massive beyond comprehension, their armored hulls gleamed with the scars of 1,000 campaigns. Each was a fortress, a cathedral of conquest, bristling with enough firepower to strip continents bare. For centuries, their arrival on a battlefield had marked the inevitable fall of civilizations. To the Krail, these ships were symbols of inevitability itself. Yet even as they moved into position, the lone human warship waited. Silent. Unflinching. Like a sentinel carved into the cosmos. On the Maelthar, Overlord Vadran's eyes burned with fury and pride. His claws tightened around the arms of his throne. Now, he hissed, let us see if this phantom bleeds. The dreadnoughts opened fire. The void convulsed with violence. Cascading lances of plasma erupted from colossal cannons. Swarms of hypermissiles, each carrying enough yield to vaporize a city, screamed toward the solitary vessel. Shockwaves rippled, tearing through space with the fury of suns unleashed. The Dominion fleet watched, waiting for the inevitable flash of destruction. Surely even this monstrosity could not withstand the combined wrath of dreadnoughts. But when the storm cleared, the human ship still moved. It had not been broken. It had not even slowed. A shimmering field clung to its hull, bending reality itself. Weapons designed to pulverize planets slid across its defenses like rain on stone. Explosions blossomed harmlessly in its wake, scattered and redirected by layers of unseen power. The dreadnought's fury had achieved nothing. And then the human ship answered. From its core, a glow ignited, faint at first, then growing into a brilliance that outshone the stars. A low vibration hummed through the void, felt even within the alien bones of those who watched. It was not simply weapon fire. It was something deeper. Something older. The glow condensed into a singularity of light, a lance of energy so pure it seemed to silence existence itself. It fired. The beam tore through the nearest Dominion dreadnought, Vorkan. There was no explosion, no gradual unraveling of systems. The massive ship simply ceased to be, its bulk carved apart in an instant, matter reduced to nothingness by a force beyond conventional science. Where a Titan had stood, there was now only emptiness. A gasp of horror rippled across Dominion comms. Entire species had fallen without making their dreadnoughts falter. Yet this one ship, this human ship, had erased one as though it were dust. The others fired in desperate retaliation, their fury redoubled. But the human vessel flowed between their shots, impossibly agile for its size. Drones screamed outward once more, carving holes into dreadnought armor, tearing engines apart with surgical precision. The drones did not fight for victory. They fought to dismantle, to expose weakness for their master's judgment. One by one, the dreadnoughts faltered. The Zorith, flames pouring from its ruptured hull, attempted to ram the human ship in final defiance. But before it could touch the gray-black armor, it split apart mid-charge, torn into fragments by invisible forces. The Maelthar shook as the shockwave tore across the battlefield, debris scattering like broken teeth. On Vadran's bridge, silence reigned. Officers stared, trembling, as their fleet, so invincible, so eternal, was reduced to wreckage around them. The Overlord's pride burned into rage. This is a trick, he snarled. No race, no backwater species, could wield such power. It cannot be real. But deep inside, he knew it was real. Terrifyingly real. The human ship drifted forward, slow and deliberate, through the wreckage of the dreadnoughts. Its glow dimmed, weapons cooling, yet its presence radiated dominance. It was not the advance of a vessel seeking victory. It was the passage of a judge, delivering sentence. A transmission cut across all Dominion channels. For the first time, the humans spoke. A voice, calm and unyielding, filled the void. This is the UNS Aegis. You have trespassed upon Sol. You will not pass. Turn back, or face erasure. The words were not shouted. They did not need to be. Their weight carried the certainty of execution. For a heartbeat, the Dominion fleet hesitated. The galaxy's most feared conquerors, hesitated. Vadran's claws shook as fury warred with terror. He wanted to roar defiance, to prove the Dominion's supremacy. But in his chest, something colder took root. He understood. If this single ship could annihilate dreadnoughts with ease, what lay beyond? How many more of these silent judges did humanity keep hidden? What horrors had they forged in their isolation? The truth was clear. The Dominion had stepped upon a boundary that should never have been crossed. Vadran bared his fangs, not in triumph, but in bitter defeat. "Signal the retreat," he spat. "Pull us from this system. Now." The order spread like wildfire. Surviving ships twisted in panic, rift space drives tearing open escape lanes. One by one, the Krail Dominion fled, dragging their wounded pride into the shadows. For the first time in living memory, their advance had been broken. The human warship did not pursue. It did not fire again. It simply lingered at the system's edge, silent and unyielding, as if daring them to return. On the bridge of the Maelthar, Overlord Vadran stared into the abyss. He had conquered worlds with ease. He had broken empires like glass. But here, at the threshold of soul, he had been humbled. And as the rift space swallowed his fleet, he knew one truth would ripple across the stars. Humanity had awakened. They had built weapons not just of war, but of judgment. And the galaxy would never be the same.